Hold to it.
So do we have,
That came to our committee.
right, they did to us as well.
And you guys said no.
We said no because of
You're
the
mean.
consistency argument.
Yeah.
That was the whole purpose of the bill, is to gain consistency district to district. And first thing we do is have an amendment that built in inconsistency for a year.
But isn't there precedent with the amendment?
It has been used, but not in a bill where the whole objective was consistency. So I think a majority probably agrees with the bill, wants the bill to pass. The question is, can we sell it on our end where the votes have been less than certain?
Yeah, and I think
With
there would
the
be a
amendment.
feeling of it, that we're asking ordinary citizens to pay it, but we're not asking DFS to either find the money or.
But we can't do that at this stage. We have-
So why don't we call the meeting to order? And we can do this for real. So we are meeting in conference on message number 305. It's a concurrence request to Senate changes to House Bill 14. And what the Senate did, Mr. Chairman, was to put in an exception for the Department of Family Services. They had came to the committee and requested it. And what we did was give them a year's extension to July 1, 2024 to pay the new fees. They provided some information about what that would cost the agency and that it wasn't built into their budget. That was their point. And so the Senate committee went for it. The Senate concurred. The only other amendment was that one where, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different bill. So I think that's the only amendment. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm totally open. We can probably go anyway. The only way I can think of to split the difference would be to change the amount of time and make, until July 1, 2024, make the DFS start paying full amount on January 1st, 2024. That would, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any committee members wish to comment on the bill?
Thank you, Representative Washit. I think that's a good compromise, the compromise put forth by Senator Case. I think it meets us at a halfway point. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative?
Thank you. I just wonder, with this idea of a meeting at a halfway point, we're still going to see the agency come back and ask for immediate funding to backfill this. So I don't know that that's the right way forward.
Yeah, I think the challenge here is that the objective of the bill was to build in uniformity and consistency across the districts in terms of whether they charge the probate fee or the civil fee, and to build that consistency. And then this amendment creates inconsistency, but only for a fixed period of time. So it was our position that we would at least have that conversation, because I think there's a desire, at least on the House side, for the bill to pass, and less than certainty that with this amendment would affect whether or not it could pass. I personally am open to give it a run, to try and see if the body would accept it with the Senate amendment, but knowing that that's a possibility that it may be rejected. So, Senator, maybe you could enlighten me. If the House were to take this conference back and say we advocate to accept the Senate amendment at this point, and the House body votes it down, is the bill then able to come back for a second conference at that point?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've seen 3 and 4 conference committees, so we're not going to let this one die. I'm happy to throw out the compromise language of July 1 or January 1st. But if you just want to go back and try to, you know, we'd be meeting kind of halfway if we
Yeah, I do worry that even the January one is basically an unfunded mandate from the legislature to the executive branch saying, find the money in your existing budget for at least half of that time period. You know, I'd just like to hear from the other House members whether you think we could pass it with the Senate amendment.
I think, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think that there could be some difficulty doing that because one of the things that came up in our discussion on the floor was how this would affect individuals filing lawsuits and some concern about that. And I think we exacerbate that somewhat by coming back with an amendment that says we're going to have individuals do it, but we're going to exempt the state for a period of time. I do see a potential problem there on that.
Representative Sherwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think we should be prepared, though, to answer the question of, to be consistent and to stick with the House's position, we are spending additional state funds. So we should be prepared to answer to our colleagues on the House floor as to why we're doing that. Thank you.
Well, no, I don't want to belabor things. Do we take testimony at these now?
You can if you want.
Anybody in the audience wish to testify?
Are you guys clerks of courts?
Sanchez is.
Yes.
Please come forward.
We can drag you into this. Where are you from, Ms. Sanchez?
I am from Laramie County.
And what I'd heard from, I can't remember which clerk, but they said they really want this bill. They're fine either way with the amendment. They can work around it. Is that fair?
So our association really does not have a stake as far as the amendment. We would like, at some point, that our filing fees can be consistent. So if that means now or in July, or if it means later on, then we most certainly would like to have that consistency. We do not want to be left with the same issues that we have today going through the future. And I can tell you some part of that is because of the e-filing that is being rolled out. I am a pilot court for the e-filing, and it does create some issues because the attorneys choose what fee they're going to pay. And then if it's not the correct fee, it is up to the clerk of district court to have to traditionally either collect additional fees or to refund if too much has been paid. And so as each court is rolling out, that's going to become an issue throughout the state.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, questions for the witness?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you offer us some perspective on like pros and cons of a compromise of changing the effective date of this bill till July 1st, 2024? Thank you.
Ms. Sanchez?
Chairman, Representative, honestly, we have not, as an association, discussed that clearly because we truly have said, as far as the amendment, that we do not have a position. We do understand with DFS that it's not in their budget. We understand that. We also have an understanding that the majority of their filing fees are reimbursed back to them. So when you talk about that it would be coming out of other state funding, I believe that the federal government is who reimburses them. But Christy Arneson could verify that if that's not correct.
Is there anyone from DFS in the room? Correct. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Mr. Chairman.
She's the one that caused this problem, by the way.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Gordy with Department of Family Services. with regards to Ms. Sanchez, as far as how the funding works, we have to have the money initially in our budget, state general fund. What happens is we currently have contracts across the state with the child support agencies who do this work. They do the filings, they make payment to the court, they then invoice us. We pay them through invoice. We then submit all of those expenditures to our federal partner, who then does reimburse us, and they do reimburse us at 66%. So the majority of the funding, once reimbursed, does happen through the federal government, but we do have to pay for it up front with state general funds.
Questions for Department?
How about, Mr. Chairman, how about if we just do this January 1st as a compromise between the houses?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know. I do believe we would still at that point have to ask. We would work to find the funding in between now and then we would have to ask for an immediate appropriation moving forward.
And we, Mr. Chairman, you'd be able to get some money out of the budget session. You might be able to get it, accelerated so you're hanging out there just a little bit.
Response?
No, I think that's correct. And just as a point, we, as we said before, we have no concerns with this bill. We just want to ensure that we can pay for it.
Senator Cole?
Thank you, Chairman Washit. Just a question, how much are we talking about is projected cost for this change as originally proposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't know, Mr. Representative. So I'm so sorry, Senator. We, between the child support program, which is the largest filer within our agency, we also have some filings through our child welfare program and division. The total cost is $127,000 in state general fund per year.
Representative Flaw.
Thank you, Chairman Washut. I think I saw numbers that if you just look at the what's not reimbursed, it would be annually about $47,000. So if we did the compromise we're talking about, and I understand the need to spend it first and get reimbursed, but in terms of what you're out of pocket is really half of that 47,000 roughly of dollars if we took it to just January. Is that pretty accurate?
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I think that is correct. That is about half the time in which we've provided the fiscal note for.
Ms. Butler, do you have anything to share with us this morning, afternoon?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Elisa Butler. I am the State Court Administrator for the Wyoming Judicial Branch. I'm sure Ms. Sanchez has already fully briefed you. I apologize for being a few minutes late. Our desire to get this bill passed is just to ensure that those two fees remain consistent. Consistency is becoming a bigger problem as we roll out these court automation systems. So that's the interest of the judiciary, is to make things a little bit easier for attorneys and much easier for our clerks. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Butler, one option that was suggested by co-chair was set the effective date or give the waiver until January 1 instead of July 1. Court have a position on that suggestion?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we have a position. We can accommodate for a period of time if there is an exemption for state agencies. Obviously, it creates a little bit of a complication, but it's not a major issue. So whether or not that's January 1st of 24 or July 1st of 24, I don't think it would make much of a difference in our eyes.
Could we see if we got the votes to move that through? I think on the Senate side, we'd have the votes for that proposal, but I don't know about on your side.
I don't know that it helps.
Can I just suggest this? What would be the outcome? Because I think this is the issue, is that having two different for individuals versus an agency, and a kind of a seeming that we're asking our citizens to do something that's also going to be burdensome for some of them, although I'm very much in favor of this bill. But what if we moved it all to January 1st. Like, we got the consistency, and there's equal treatment. I mean, how much of an impact? Well, I mean, I know it will have an impact, and my own county clerk, who I like to keep happy too, has indicated the need for the funding, especially in our county, to help with those upgrades and things, so.
My
Mr.
only
Chairman?
concern, I don't think we'd be able to do that.
I think we need a free committee to do
Yeah,
that.
okay.
So, committee, one option is to simply not reach an agreement and come back for a second committee.
That's fine.
The other option is to vote for the Senate amendment or for the compromised January 1 position. So let's take a vote on that January 1 compromise and see what we have for votes. So
Could you restate the motion?
the motion would be that Section 2 of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 14 from the Senate side that states that the increase to civil case filing fees provided by this act shall not apply to any state agency required to pay the fee imposed as amended until July 1, 2024. The amendment would change to July 1 to January 1, 2024. Thus, putting some demand on the agency, but it would be just weeks before the budget session were to convene, and we might be able to pass an emergency allocation at that point. Everybody clear on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No.
You really got to have 2 and 2 from each house.
Yeah.
Because you can't sign the committee report, so. I've got another conference
So do
committee,
I.
and they're waiting, so.
So let's call this a failed conference and have the bodies appoint a second committee to come back.
That sounds fine. Okay.